Hey there, thank you for tuning into the podcast. Today I'm speaking with a public speaking expert who tells his story on how he took a great fear of public speaking and turned it into a passion where he now speaks to hundreds of people. He shares his tips and insights for beginners and experienced public speakers. Thanks for listening. Hey there, you're listening to the David Murray Public Speaking Podcast. To find out more, you can visit me at davidalanmurray.com. Hello, welcome to today's podcast. I'm David Murray. Thank you very much for listening. Now, today is a slightly different one to my normal podcast because today I have a very, very special guest. He's a coach. He's a public speaker, he's a Camino guide, he's an all-round good chap. It's Adam Wells.
Hi David, thank you for inviting me here today. It's a great honour, great pleasure here to be talking to you and having this podcast interview.
Well, it's absolutely great to have you here today, Adam. I really appreciate you giving me your time. So the reason why I've got you down here is because this is a public speaking podcast.
Yes.
And I know a little bit about your journey into public speaking. And I just thought it would be great for some of the listeners to hear about, what you do now, where you've come from in terms of public speaking, what inspired you to to do public speaking.
Yep.
And if you have anything that you've learned that you can share with us and to help us on our journeys, would that be okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, very
Thank you. So let's get straight into it then. So Adam, tell us what you do.
I retire people. Not in the deadly sense of the word, but no, I help people who are struggling with the sort of transition into retirement, particularly sort of finding new meaning and purpose. So that's what I do now.
So, and how does this, where you are now, connect with you with public speaking then?
Well, back in 2011, I resigned from my corporate job and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I decided to walk my own Camino across Spain. And it was whilst I was doing that walk in the middle of Spain, I suddenly realised that actually I'd like to inspire people to actually walk the Camino themselves. I thought everybody should walk the Camino. But by the time I got to the end of the walk, I realised that my first step was actually to go on to do public speaking, because all of my life I've been terrified about public speaking, absolutely terrified. And so I came back from Spain committed to do a public speaking course. And so I signed myself up for a public speaking course. And exactly 1 year to the day, I found myself standing one Sunday afternoon at Speaker's Corner giving a rant to the masses at Speaker's Corner. And never in a million years would I ever have believed that was possible, because a year previously I was absolutely terrified.
So was that the whole soapbox thing, standing on a soapbox?
That's right, standing on a soapbox and ranting to the world.
And what was that like?
Terrifying, particularly since I didn't have a speech or anything that I knew what I was going to say when I climbed the stepladder to actually do the talk. In short, this was one of the course challenges, and so 6 of us had gone down there to do the talk and to give speeches, and I had no speech, and so I climbed the top of this stepladder and I was absolutely petrified. But at the top of that stepladder, words came from within me. I cannot tell you what I spoke about because I don't remember, but I learnt in that moment to just trust, and magic happens, and that was probably one of my most surreal public speaking moments in my life.
Is there a tip for us all? Because I know when I started out, I would probably overthink things before I began something. Is there something in terms of the old idea of jumping in and seeing what happens? Or
I think so. I think when I think there's a big part of public speaking is actually dancing in the moment and just letting go and stretching that muscle of just trusting that you have got words to say. What you say is of value. People want to hear it, and they appreciate it. And that's what I discovered on that day. You don't need to pre-plan everything. We have a voice. It's just we just got to allow it to come out.
When I think about my own experiences, I know that I put off starting public speaking for such a long time before I did it. So I wish I'd kind of known that at the time. Actually try it and it'll probably work out okay. Now, if I can sort of fast forward a few years, because I've seen you speak at various events. I've seen you fill cinemas with your events. I've seen you speak at smaller events, but I know that, you're quite adept at speaking in front of hundreds of people now. And I just want to know, what does that feel like compared to, you know, when that time when you were sort of standing on that soapbox in Hyde Park. I mean, you're now speaking to hundreds of people. How does that feel?
Well, I mean, I love it. I have to say, I think, you know, what I've recognised from my public speaking is that it's when I'm in front of hundreds of people, I actually enjoy it. Only because if I know my content, I know what I'm talking about, I know that it's going to be enjoyed. I know my audience, and there's those sort of key things with public speaking. It's that when I'm comfortable with myself, I can be comfortable with the audience, and I can truly enjoy it, and it's fun. And you know, I'm out of my head.
Yeah, that's good. And I get it asked sometimes is that, for example, you know, you speak to one person, you speak to two people over time, or I can do 10. Some people say to me, what's it like to speak to, you know, like hundreds of people? Is there a point where actually the number doesn't matter anymore?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it doesn't matter because there actually is a point where you can't see all those eyes in the back of the room. You just, you know, it just blurs. You know, it doesn't matter at all. And I think that's true. That 1 or 150 or 1,000, it's the same. You're talking still just really to that one person.
And how do you personally prepare to do that, to sort of stand on that stage in front of everyone? You talked about, you know, the audience, you know, your material. Is there anything else that you do to prepare?
It is all the preparation. So I will write my speech or my presentation, and it will take me a good 3 to 4 weeks or maybe longer, and I build it up slowly in my mind, and then I will rehearse it. But I'm not rehearsing it to learn it by rote at all. There has to be the spontaneity in the delivery, and so as long as I know roughly how it's all going to go, then the rest I just leave to the moment.
So is there a top tip in there for people who are sort of public speaking in terms of that kind of whole experience about learning your speech? Is there advice in terms of not trying to learn it word for word?
Yeah, I mean, it's just be yourself. I mean, that's really, people will connect with you being yourself, and it quickly comes through in the delivery if you've learned something off by heart, and if you miss a section, then what happens? You know, you don't have that ability to sort of jump back into your speech.
Okay,
So yeah, I mean, the fun is a lot of the time in the impromptu bits, you know, and the mistakes as well. You know, people notice that and they'll laugh, and you get connected to the audience as well.
So have you got any advice for somebody who is either just starting out or they're thinking about giving public speaking a go? What advice have you got to give them?
Number one is the belief that you can do it, and you can do it. I mean, I was terrified of public speaking for 35 years. And what I've discovered is that my greatest fear is probably my greatest gift in public speaking. So just do it, because you don't know what's on the other side, and it will change your life. So that's my number one tip is don't hold back, just do it.
No, thank you. And so when we think about public speaking, is that I guess we've all got our ideas of maybe a goal in mind, or something that perhaps we're thinking, yeah, I'm doing it for this purpose. Like I know that some people will come on a course or a workshop because maybe they've got to deliver a best man speech or they've got to deliver a presentation at work. And I think that's great. But sometimes I know that public speaking can give you something that you weren't expecting. Now, has public speaking ever given you something or presented an opportunity to you that you never would have expected at the start?
Yes, the strangest of stories, really. I run these I ran meetup walks for my Camino walking group, and a lady gave me a DVD, and she said to me, "Adam, this is a fantastic DVD, watch it." So I watched it, and then she said to me after I watched it, "It's good, isn't it?" And she goes, "Yes." I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, you must show this film in the UK in cinemas." And so I looked at the back of the DVD, and it was an American DVD, and I thought, okay, maybe, and I just parked the idea. Anyway, 10 days later, I'm in the United States at another one of those American pilgrims on the Camino gatherings, and I met the producer of the film, and she said to me, "I have no distributor in the UK, please put on film screenings of my film and do questions and answers." And so that led me to going around the whole of the UK, showing this particular DVD film called Walking the Camino, 6 Ways to Santiago. And I ended up talking to hundreds of people through the questions and answer sessions. And never in a million years would I have ever thought I'd be doing that. So, you know, public speaking takes on its life of its own, so to speak.
Yeah. And what is it that you personally love about public speaking then?
I think you can truly discover your first. Number one is you can truly discover yourself. You have one from well, there's two reasons really. One is you discover yourself. You let yourself go, and that voice inside you can come out and be free. And if you have a message, you're then sharing that message. Well, we all have a message. Not if you have a message, we all have a message. And with that message that you have, you can change the world. And then you feel even more sort of energized and happy because you're connecting with the audience, and there's a sort of you're giving them a gift, and that gift is you, and you can't get better than that, I don't think.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. What things have you realised are important if you want to be a good public speaker, and what does a good public speaker mean?
Well, I think a good public speaker is one that connects with the audience. It's not about you, this public speaker, it's about the audience, number one. And then another thing I think is that you've put your work in to deliver something that's very good for that audience. So you've looked at the content, you've looked at how you're going to deliver it, you've practiced it. You're going to your audience you're respecting your audience, and what you deliver to them is of value, and that's what I think a good public speaker is about. It's not just trying to do it just on the fly and just hoping and trusting. It means 90% preparation, 10% execution.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that certainly that I learned is that when you're delivering a speech, the speech is about the listener, it's about the audience, it's not about you. Yeah. And you have to really think about them when you're preparing and when you're delivering. So
yeah, and that's part of the journey to become a public speaker, is getting out of your own head. And the moment you get out of your head and you stop thinking about yourself, and it's like, maybe like learning a language. One day you just wake up and it's there. You're thinking about your audience. Then that's when the magic begins. But it's just a bit of a journey to actually get to that spot through stage time and practice and practice and practice.
So, myth busting. Are there any public speaking myths out there, maybe one or two that you can think of, that people think's going to happen but never actually does when you're public speaking?
Well, I think, when I can certainly remember when I first started off with the first few speeches thinking, oh my God, all those eyes staring at me, and they must be seeing every sort of, shake of my leg or going red and all of this stuff, seeing right through me. And I think that really is a myth, that, the audience isn't there to recognise those aspects. And even if you do all of that stuff, they want you to succeed, and it doesn't matter. It's, people forget, and they want you just to be yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think that's a myth around, a hole in the ground is going to open up and we're going to disappear forever and we'll never recover. And I think the second myth, is the fact that we think actually we can't do it. Yes, we can do it. If we can speak to one person, we can speak to 100 people in one go. It's just taking that courageous step to
Thank
just
you.
do it.
Thank you very much. Absolutely agree with you there. So, where you are now, spoken on many platforms in various different events. In terms of all the things that you've learned, all the experience that you have now, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to yourself all those years ago when you started out? One thing that you've learned that you'd say, oh, I wish I'd known that at the time.
Wow, that's a question and a half. If I look back with hindsight, I probably wish I'd actually taken this journey a lot sooner than I actually did. That would be the one. That's the one. Don't hesitate to just begin, because public speaking is actually a life-changing action. You will change your life. It's more than just speaking in public. It's you're creating your life. And that's what I found, and I've seen lots of other people experience the same. So don't hold back, just do it.
I agree, get out there and do it. Absolutely, Adam. So absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate your time today, and there's some great top tips and advice that you shared with us today. So before we end, Adam, what's next for Adam Wells?
Well, on a professional front, I'm passionate about sharing sort of my retirement coaching and linking that in with the Camino de Santiago as a tool to help people find new meaning and purpose. And sort of Fun wise, yeah, I love public speaking. I mean, it's just go out, have fun, and share. That's what I love doing now. It really is a part of my life, and I'm going to just continue doing more of it.
Well, Adam, I'd like to say a big thank you very much for joining me today and to sharing your wisdom in all things public speaking and beyond. And if people do want to kind of get in touch and just find out a little bit more about what you do, where can they find you?
My website's www.discoverthecamino.com.
Fantastic. I will add that to the podcast notes. Thank you, everybody, for listening this week. Please do subscribe to the podcast and speak to you next week. Thank you very much. If you'd like to find out more, you can visit me at davidallenmurray.com.